Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fighting the Void. I am Ginger here once again, as always. And today I am without my lovely co host. Instead, I am joined by Declan Finn, author of a great many excellent Catholic horror books, including St. Tommy PD, Dave's Vault, and that series is just recently released, I understand.
Yep, book 6.
Yep, and the Love at First Bite series about Catholic vampires. It's a thing. Check it out. It's really cool. And I noticed as I was browsing around Amazon the other day, Declan, that you've got a Merle Craft book out.
Yep. For those of you who haven't read the vampire books, Merle Craft is a character, and he winds up with his own novel well, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's more of a serial because the original book was a lot longer than most of the normal ones.
Okay.
I didn't want to lose people. It's like, okay, it's as cheap as Amazon will let me sell, as about the same size. And yeah, Merle Craft makes, he's got a co-starring role. It's actually book 2 of a thriller series, and he just showed up, and I could not keep him out of it, or his brothers.
Oh, the brothers are in it as well.
Both of them.
Excellent. Now I'll have to. I'm going to have to get that one and give it a read as soon as I possibly can, because Merle was one of my. He's in a way he's sort of like the Tom Bombadil of the Love at First Bite series.
I hope it's not that bad.
Like, you're just not like, he's there. He's cool. You're not entirely sure exactly what he is.
Okay, good. I did that part right.
Yes. He wasn't. I got no impression that he was likely to be prancing through the alleyways of New York, singing gibberish or anything like that about the color of his pants and his coats and things like that. I wasn't expecting that at any point. So if you were not wanting that, you did good.
Thank you.
So today is, of course, it's December 7th. Happy Pearl Harbor Day. May it live forever in infamy.
Amen.
But that is actually not what we're here to talk about. We are here because December 7th happens, surprise, surprise, to fall between December 6th and December 8th, which is the feast day of St. Nicholas and the solemnity of the Immaculate Conception. For those who don't know, which is to say, first of all, almost anyone who isn't Catholic, and frankly, several Catholics, those are some fairly high water days within the Catholic liturgical calendar, especially the Immaculate Conception. But we figured we'd talk about jolly old St. Nick too, since, he has a little bit of a connection to this thing called Christmas. And we figured we'd just go ahead and just, spend some time talking about them, talking about the actual history, what these things mean, because there are certainly a lot of misconceptions and just general lack of understanding of exactly one, who St. Nicholas is, and exactly what the Immaculate Conception is. Declan, when I was growing up as a young, poorly educated Protestant, if I heard the term Immaculate Conception or conceived without sin, I basically thought it meant somebody was conceived without having sex. Yeah, I thought it referred to Jesus.
No, don't worry. I think there are probably still Catholics who make that mistake as well. Yeah. But no, conceived and born,
yes,
without original sin.
Right.
Meaning, technically, in today's terms, she would not need a baptism.
Sure.
And with Mary, let's put it this way. God had a fairly good idea that maybe we should probably have someone sinless to give birth to, I don't know, Jesus.
Right. Now, why would that be important though? Why would that matter? Playing the straight man here.
Okay.
Sorry. I know why.
Okay. Well, when God is becoming man, becoming flesh, yeah, you want your deity to have a somewhat sinless portal to go through, if you'll pardon the expression. And Geez, there are some images I don't want in my head right now. But anyway, so hopefully that's clear enough. If I have to spell it out to people,
yes.
Okay, go back to mom and dad, talk about the birds and the bees, and come back. We'll talk.
And also, it's important to look at why was it important that Mary be sinless. Is you got to look at the old Jewish purification laws and everything.
Okay.
They were very, very big on something clean couldn't touch something that was unclean. If something clean or holy or sacred came in contact with something unclean, the holy thing was regarded as unclean in and of itself.
Now, one or two things.
Please.
Sorry, I'm a historian. All I can see is the footnotes. It's like I want to insert footnote there and footnote. First footnote on cleanliness. Look up the mikvah, which is ritual bath. Every time a woman had a period, go separated from everybody else, and go into the mikvah, the ritual bath, to become clean. And mysteriously enough, this is when a woman is in the most distress during the month. Let's keep her isolated and away from any guys who may or may not be predatory. Maybe it's practical. Who knew? Second footnote. Everybody might follow Ginger's wordings and go, gee, didn't something about unclean, making holy things unclean, get rewritten a little bit? Kind of. We were actually talking about that before we went live, but that's later on. Hello, did I lose you? Okay. Okay, on my end, his image is frozen. Okay, I'm apparently here by myself. Who knew? Anyway, for the record, yes, if you're thinking at some point, did that cleanliness, uncleanliness get a little bit rewritten? Only a little. Mainly because, let's face it, back then, cleanliness was, critical to hygiene. And yes, we have all sorts of wonderful soaps now. Didn't then. So, when the best you can do is a saltwater routine, trust me, cleanliness is going to be a priority. If you do not believe me, just ask anybody who has ever worked in agriculture. And in this case, even nomadic culture, where, you work with farm animals all day long. Cleanliness and hygiene is going to be a thing. And such a thing, it becomes codified. And after fashion became law. Oh,
hey,
thank
Declan,
Hi.
Not to interrupt, but I think we completely dropped out for like a minute.
Yes, we did. I have been filling the stream with words.
Hopefully it was actually going out, because mine completely died.
We'll see on the rerun.
Okay.
Anyway, I was droning on about mikvah and cleanliness, and yes, you really want to codify hygiene with farm animals all day long, etc. I just kept spinning.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And the point being that there's a clear precursor to the idea of making sure to keep holy things separate and out of contact with anything that isn't holy. And obviously, a vessel that is stained by original sin is going to at least have a perceived, a perceived effect on whatever's within it. even if that be the Son of God. What's that?
Delicately put.
Oh, yes, exactly. And but now the constant objection, the typical objection that brings up, how is it that Mary could possibly be herself, that she could possibly be without original sin? First of all, let's actually clarify what original sin is, because I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there these days that have no idea what that means.
Well, you want to go for it's the original sin of pride, where I am more important than God, in which pretty much everybody does every time they sin, period. But let's face it, biblically, Apple, Eve, Garden of Eden, last time I checked, is not considered to be an historical event. I am sorry, literalists. St. Augustine threw out literalism way before everyone was born.
Right,
So-
right. Way back in the 4th century, he was talking about that.
Yes. So St. Augustine would not be happy with intelligent design museums where they have, children frolicking along with velociraptors. But anyway, moving right along. So how can Mary be conceived without original sin? Well, part of the answer to that is God wanted it. Period. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Right, and that is simply and solely the primary reason. God basically took the grace, the grace granted by Jesus and his crucifixion resurrection, and because God exists outside of time and space, he could be like, okay, here, granted, there. Basically, just proactively applied the grace of salvation to Mary.
Yes. Now, most people I know will go, well, why doesn't he do that with everybody? Guys, it's called baptism. You can do it. It's do it yourself.
Right.
You can do this.
Exactly. It essentially is the same thing. It's just later. And again, as you pointed out, the whole thing was Mary was a very special case because there's no other mother of God.
I should hope not.
No, that would get confusing. to say the
Jesus
very
had two mommies.
well, right there, that in and of itself, that could lead us on a whole tangent talking about extraterrestrial life and how that could possibly work. But that's another show.
Please God, yes.
That's a whole another episode. Suffice to say, it's not Mary wasn't sinless just because she was just so dang awesome. She was awesome, but she was able to do that because of a very special, very unique grace given from God to her. And as far as anybody knows, to her and her alone. There is an interesting school of thought out there that St. Joseph also might have received the same grace, but that's far from being defined at this particular point in time.
Okay. New one on me.
It's out there. It's out there. Look, if you're curious, Google like challenge and change, and the people behind that are very big on that.
Okay.
But as far as I can tell, they're very much orthodox, very much in line with the church's teaching and everything. That this is just the particular thing that's kind of like up, it's out there and people are discussing it, and maybe in a couple hundred years the church will rule on it definitively.
Yeah, which means it is also, on one hand, not heretical. On the other hand, it's also not really that important because, let's face it, for those people who do not know, to be perfectly stringent about it,
mm-hmm.
You do not need to believe in any one particular saint or in any one particular miracle,
right?
Non-biblical,
right?
To be in the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look up something, I always screw up the pronunciation.
Medjugorje.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That. Oh my God.
That, yes. Again, another episode.
Please, God. Sorry, I read a book on it once by somebody who, way back when, was trying to spin about how the United States was bad, but Russia was perfectly saintly. Obviously, this was under the Obama administration. Okay. Before they changed that narrative.
Yeah. Interesting. But now, when it comes to the Immaculate Conception, just to clarify, because we've gone down a couple of rabbit trails, It refers not to Jesus, refers to Mary, and her being conceived with, and her not being born without original sin. No original sin whatsoever, because of special grace given by God. for the sole purpose that she could be the pure, unstained mother of God.
For those of you who want somebody who is conceived without sex, that is the Annunciation, which is a different thing altogether.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that it is interesting to me how that how my pre-Catholic understanding of that term, how that even came to be. I wonder how that sort of got lost in the telephone game of history there. It's just interesting. It's entirely possible it was something having to do with the Protestant, it's at least the Calvinist, I should say. I don't want to paint everybody with the same broad brush, but the Calvinist tendency to regard sex as fundamentally in and of itself dirty, like we have to do it to keep the species going, but we really feel like we shouldn't.
Calvin.
Yes. Again, another episode.
I feel like we should be keeping a list of everything we want to do with, future episodes.
Oh, dude, it could be there could be episodes from now until the second coming.
Probably.
Absolutely. And now when exactly did the church go about finally defining the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception? Because first of all, it's we all know it isn't explicit in the Bible by any means. It isn't spelled out for us. But how did the church come about defining this particular doctrine?
Now, if I recall correctly, and please stop me if I'm wrong, because I might be, I believe it was under Pius XII. He's kind of my go-to guy for very, very long-winded reasons. He actually kind of took a vote. It's, okay, hey, bishops, go to your diocese, go to your priests. Here is this poll. Do your congregation, do your parishioners celebrate this? Do they believe this to be true?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They did.
Most of them already did. Yes.
Yes. So they pretty much just to their mind, they just codified what everybody else already knew.
Mm-hmm.
And for everybody who wants to talk about, oh, let's have elections in the Catholic Church. Guess what, suckers? We already kind of have them on occasion.
Not often, but every now and again.
Yes, but these people would actually have to show up to church in order to actually have a say in the matter.
Yes.
I expect one day somebody is going to pull that off. Some pope is going to pull that off. And, every good James Martin Catholic is going to go, wow, we were told. Well, you should have showed up to Sunday Mass. No, shouldn't you?
Yes, please. Let's have that happen as soon as humanly possible. I don't even care what they're defining. I just kind of want that out there. Now, that was way back, what was it, 1854 or 1858?
Add a digit to the 18. 19.
19.
Because this was Pius XII.
No. Oh, wait.
Really?
No.
Maybe I'm getting the wrong.
No, I think you got the wrong date because because sort of the confirmation of it wasn't that at Lourdes when she appeared to Saint Bernadette and referred to herself as the Immaculate Conception?
Not that I recall. Again, I'm going for the actual date. If you're shooting for the doctrine, that might be. But I was thinking of the feast day, and I'm trying to get Wikipedia to work so it can answer my question for me.
Yeah, I'm actually because I want to double check myself now too, because I want to say it was defined in 1854, and then but the apparitions at Lourdes happened a few years later.
Okay. Now it's a race between our internet connections.
Yes, it is. Yes,
First.
it is. We're getting it out. We're getting it out there. Let's see here.
All right.
Basic meteorology.
Your internet connection is going to have to win because apparently my laptop is now going. I got the live stream going. What do you want from me?
Okay, it was it looks like it was okay. Hold on, I'm seeing different things. So annoying. I went to newadvent.com, which is usually they're gonna have like all the goods. But the problem with newadvent.com is they literally have all the goods. You've got to kind of really know what you want to get to, because they put everything in there.
So you can be drowned in data.
You can be very, very drowned in data, and it's there's just so much there. Okay, here we go. Yep. Pope Pius IX was your guy, and it was 1854.
All right, my bad.
Yep, and then a few years later, when she referred to herself as Immaculate Conception when appearing to Saint Bernadette, who apparently hadn't even heard that term independently, because she wasn't the brightest. She wasn't the brightest student.
Well, she was not the most educated student.
No, she wasn't. And good girl, holy girl, all of that, but not she wasn't Marie Curie by any means.
Well, as somebody pointed out, and I'm sure I used to have this footnote, but as somebody pointed out, the Epiphany shows that we get shepherds showing up at Jesus' birth. We have the wise men showing up at Jesus' birth, because God comes to those who read many books. God comes to those who read no books, but God does not come to people who read only one book. Yeah.
That's a fair point. That's good. That's a very fair point. But the point with Saint Bernadette is that she really hadn't been taught about Mary being the Immaculate Conception before that, apparently.
No.
And that was one of the things that made people think, like, maybe we ought to take this apparition seriously, because because there's no reason she necessarily would have heard it, because we're out here in the middle of nowhere, France.
Yeah, for those people who want to learn, well, at least get more of the story of Saint Bernadette, see Song of Bernadette.
Yeah.
It stars of all people Vincent Price.
Which is it's actually a legitimately good movie. It really is. And I definitely recommend it, just as like a good movie just to sit down and watch with the family.
Oh yeah.
And it's got actually one of the best quotes in it about the way God sees us that maybe I've ever heard. And it was, I can't remember what the setup was, but Bernadette was asking her priest about how kind of basically what we're worth in relation to God, and he's like, well, it all depends on your perspective. If you're looking from us up to God, we're nothing, but from God looking down to us, we're like absolutely everything. I'm like, yes, pretty much.
Well, you know exactly how much we are to God in that, well, we have this guy nailed to a set of 2x4s who thought we were fairly important. I'd go with him on that.
Yeah, exactly. It's that in and of itself is a pretty good indicator of how much God thinks we're worth. But now, so late 19th century and everything, this doctrine comes about again, like you said, not out of nowhere. Most places were already like, yeah, this is obviously totally a thing. It's not like it was something that they cooked up in the back room of the Vatican. It was like, okay, put out our nefarious doctrine of Mary,
Yeah.
and we will control the world. Which seems to be the impression that people have.
Oh Lord, I'm trying to remember. It was one pope. Two different quotes on the church and taking over the world. Well, I always like to apply it to taking over the world.
Why not?
The church, the pope talking to Napoleon. Napoleon says, "I am going to destroy your church," and the pope says, "We've been trying for 1,800 years. You ain't going to do it." Mm-hmm. And the other end, I want to say it's Evelyn Waugh. It might not be. That there is one absolute proof that the Catholic Church is divine and created by the divine, because any other organization that was run this shabbily would not have gotten past the first century.
Yes, I have heard that quote, and a corollary is so there have been, I think, more than one person that's gone to Rome, and people were worried. It's like, oh my gosh, if you actually see the yahoos running our church, you're never going to think about joining it. And they see the yahoos running the church, and they come away with basically that same thought. It's like, if we can survive these morons, it's got to be divinely inspired. There's no other way that this could continue.
No kidding.
Which is kind of like, yeah, actually, if you think about it, it is kind of a backhanded compliment.
Kinda. Well, as I keep telling people, I'm a historian, and we're not going to get sidetracked on any current popes or any recent popes even. But every time somebody tells me this is the worst pope ever, he's an anti-pope, he's the anti-Christ, he's blah, 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 blah. My first response is, guys, we've had Borgias and Medicis, Julius III, and a whole bunch of other people on the throne of Peter. Yeah. In terms of the worst pope, I don't think we've even seen the top 20 in the last 50 years.
Exactly. Yeah. There may be some that we're less fond of than others, but yeah, not the worst we've ever had. Yeah. For example, there aren't any reports of any of the recent popes. Let's just say that and be diplomatic. Any of the recent popes having to, make somebody a cardinal who just doesn't really seem to fit the bill at all. Just kind of out of nowhere, that just hasn't really happened.
Well, we haven't had any popes give, their bastard offspring high seats in the church. No mistresses that we know of. Most of them were too old anyway. And
I would hope so.
The worst I could say about any of them is that we have not had some of the brightest lights. I'm actually thinking back to Paul VI, where he's wondering where the vestments are for, I forget which feast day. It's like, where are the vestments? And the altar boy tells him, we don't celebrate that feast day anymore. And Paul VI goes, what idiot made that decision? You did, Your Holiness. It's like, how do you run an organization where you don't even know what feast days you've gotten rid of?
To be fair, it was probably one of about a bazillion documents that came across his desk and he just signed.
Would not be the first time.
No, wouldn't shock me at all. Especially, just what the poor guy had to deal with, in the in the immediate aftermath of Vatican II, and dealing with coming up with the Humanae Vitae encyclical and all of that, and the backlash to that. Man, the poor guy, I swear.
True.
He really, in all honesty, I think you could probably say that there hadn't been a worse time to be the Pope since the Reformation. You can make an argument.
Yeah, the one in 1527 had it fairly rough. Oof. Anyway,
I see we've got Pastor Greg in the chat there. He's a pastor at a Pentecostal church not far from me, and we've had a lot of great conversations and everything. And he's a fantastic guy. And as he says, he does have a lot of respect for us nutty Catholics out here.
well, I'd like to go with the line: anyone who is not against us is with us. I'll
Pretty
take
much.
that and run.
Pretty much. Or, as I say, we know where the church is. We don't know where she isn't.
The Catholic Church, everywhere you don't want us to be.
Well, yeah, depending on who you're talking to, that might be anywhere. But that's beside the point. That gets you to a Fulton Sheen quote, but that's going to get us on another tangent. So,
no kidding. So, more Immaculate Conception or St. Nicholas?
Yes, actually, let's. Unless somebody like Pastor Greg or anyone else who pops up has a question about the Immaculate Conception, we'll go ahead and jump into jolly old Saint Nick here. Okay. First of all, now December 6th, of course, is the feast day of Saint Nicholas, who was in fact a real person, everybody out there. And he was not an old guy who drove a sled in some English town delivering presents whenever it snowed or anything like that you might have seen in a modern movie. He did not have, there was no Mrs. Claus. In fact, Santa Claus was St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas's last name was not Claus. Nor was there a business card describing the Santa Claus that he carried around with him, just waiting for Tim the Tool Man to knock him off a roof.
Yes. Now, St. Nicholas is, last time I checked, the patron saint of thieves, children, prostitutes? Something weird like that.
Prostitutes, huh?
Prostitutes. It might be one of the others, but it's like he had a laundry list of like 4 or 5 things he's patron saint of.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait, okay. Thieves, yeah, I guess you could consider some of what he did, break B&E. But, children I can get. Prostitutes, that it always stuck out. So
maybe he like bought and freed one or two. I could see that.
Sounds about right. Well, you're definitely not going to give that position to Thomas Aquinas.
No, he was prone to chase him out of the room with a hot poker, as I recall.
Yeah, I remember being fiery log, but like
fiery log, yeah.
Flame.
Yeah. And there's actually no way to say that doesn't sound bad. But
well,
suffice to say, again, an aside, St. Thomas's family really did not want him to be a priest at all. At least not a Dominican. Certainly not that. So they actually kidnapped him, locked him in a freaking tower, and to make it basically make sure he was riddled with guilt for the rest of his life and would never become a priest, they literally took a prostitute, threw her in the room, and was like, well, he's a dude, right? He may want to be a priest, but he ain't dead. So something's going to happen here, and something did happen. He grabbed, as you say, a fiery log out of the fireplace and chased her around the room with it until they let her out. So, yeah, there's certain things you just don't screw around with, man.
No.
St. Nicholas is one of those, but we'll get to that. And Greg, I already see that. Yeah, you clearly know your stuff.
Yes. But yes, and actually I think that was the second prostitute for Aquinas. The first one he wound up converting because it's Aquinas. With Saint Nick, come with me now to the glory days of yesteryear in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea, where one of the discussions is having a conversation on the nature of Christ, where he fits in the Trinity, etc., etc. And you got this one guy named Arius making an argument. Oh, okay. making an argument that Jesus is inferior in the Trinity.
Right.
I forget what his argument was. I believe it was possibly because, well, if Jesus became half man, well, this makes him less than God.
Right.
Nicholas being the okay, he just didn't want to. He just had a 0 BS tolerance level. Got up and punched Arius in the face.
And I love that story so much. It's like Santa Claus punched a heretic. This is the best. And as you see in the meme that you shared earlier, hopefully for those who can see it, if you're listening on audio later, it's just an old icon of Saint Nicholas. And the meme is, I came to give presents to kids and to punch heretics, and I just ran out of presents. I mean, honestly, is there anything better? I mean, well, so yes, jolly old Saint Nick was like, "Oh, you're blaspheming now, are you? Not only do you get coal for Christmas,
well, at least
you get punched in the face now."
Yes, although if we made December 6th Punch a Heretic Day, that would get a little bit...
that would get some attention.
That's one way to put it. You know, I could just see it now. Every cop wandering around the cities going, Halloween was bad. Now it's Punch a Heretic Day. For the love of... When's the break?
No, I'm totally down with Punch a Heretic Day. Let's just do that, and we can return Our Lady of the Rosary. We could take that and just return it to Our Lady of Victory.
Amen.
I am 100% on board with all of that. So, but Saint Nicholas, he was a bishop.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't just a dude who made cool little woodcrafty presents. He actually was a bishop in Turkey, of all places.
Yes. I'm trying to... Sorry, I have a cheat sheet here, and I'm looking at it going, wait, where exactly was he from? But, oh well. I need to get a footnote on the German that goes from Santa Claus to Nicholas and other problems I have.
Yeah, and of course we'll get to his transformation into the modern Santa Claus, but it turns out that he actually was known for, in fact, giving presents, as it turned out, after a fashion. Many of the stories, actually occurs to me, one of the stories, it might be the origin of him being the patron saint of prostitutes, because one of the stories is there were three daughters that the father couldn't support them, so he was going to sell them off, essentially.
Right. As you do.
That may be where they were going to get sold off to, essentially. And depending on the version of the story you hear, he either tossed 3 bags of gold down a chimney or through the window. And actually, that particular story, those little gold coins you get, those little chocolate coins wrapped in gold foil that you get every year at Christmas, and they're in a little bag. That's why you get those. Is this old story of Saint Nicholas,
which is interesting because I'm going to have to look up the tradition of Hanukkah gelt, because that's pretty much what my Jewish friends get as well. I wonder which way that tradition went.
Fair question. And I'm going to guess that it actually went from Saint Nicholas to Hanukkah, only because Hanukkah is what it is today, only because of a couple of fairly liberal rabbis who decided that Jews needed a Christmas.
Oh, I'm sure some of their congregation went, so why don't we have something akin to this?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it's back in the day, before whenever that was, mid 20th century or something. I forget the exact date. But before that, it had nothing to do with presents or anything like that. It was just a solemn celebration of the cleansing of the temple during the Maccabean revolt.
Yes, and as I once heard as I once heard it described, it's like every other Jewish feast day. They tried to kill us. They didn't succeed. Let's eat.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That does sum up the typical Jewish feast day pretty nicely.
Oh, by the way, I'm not sure if this will come through via the camera, but one of my favorite images for St. Nicholas, too much light. Hold on. Can I cover this? Nope. All right, it's not going to come out.
I do see that though. It's the Santa Clausified, but actually kneeling at the manger.
Yeah. One of these days, I'm going to get a handle on how web cameras work. Hold on. I changed the lighting. Oh, you can actually see.
No,
better.
You can see that quite well.
Yeah.
No, that is nice. And as Greg again pointed out in the chat, Saint Nicholas, he did basically use his whole inheritance as a young man to basically help people that were poor, that were sick. As I recall, he actually bought and freed slaves.
Okay.
Again, possible origin of the patron saint of prostitutes thing.
Yeah. The problem is my knowledge on the subject is in part fragmented and affected between things I have read that I know are factual and cartoon biographies of the saints I was exposed to in Catholic school.
Right.
Where, well, Greg just confirmed something I remember from the animated biography of the saint.
I got a feeling we're talking. I have a feeling we're thinking of the same one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he certainly did, and there was another one too where he gave like some. He like pass out oranges or something like that to people, and I guess some places they still include chocolate covered oranges during their as part of their St. Nicholas or Christmas celebrations.
And of course, where I live in New York, you only get the chocolate covered oranges by going to the nearest Jewish supermarket.
That's interesting, huh? That actually is fascinating. I kind of wonder. Yeah, I wonder how much of that actually was back and forth. I'm very curious now. But suffice to say, there is some legitimate origin to the whole thing of St. Nicholas being the dude who brings presents. And in fact, oh yes, it was like left the oranges, or they were like little balls of gold. I can't remember exactly, but actually in stockings of some sort of poor, destitute family. Hence the origin of the Christmas stocking. And in Catholic circles, there has been a long-standing tradition on December 6th that you actually would fill up a shoe or something with some sort of small presents or treats or something like that. Because St. Nicholas came by at night and filled up, left some little things in the shoe for the children of the family to find in the morning. And yeah, and we actually did that for a while until we're like, oh my gosh, how much sugar are we giving these kids? how much money are we going to spend? Are we going to spend on all of this stuff that they're going to break in about 2 hours? It's like,
or they play with the box.
Yeah. But in any case, there are a lot of cool traditions and everything that there is a legitimate origin for. Now, of course, the Santa Claus that we know today has got almost nothing to do with St. Nicholas.
It has more to do with Macy's.
Much more to do with Macy's. The sleigh, the reindeer, all of that. The red suit. Although you could argue that the red suit harkens back ever so slightly all the way back to his bishop's vestments. You could argue that,
more or less,
or his, as I understand it, original green suit. I've heard it that the whole reason that he wears red is because of Coca-Cola.
Not out of the realm of possibility,
Like
although I can't note that particular marketing that far back.
they decided to put them on their cans back then. It was just and their cans were already red, but they were like green coat, red can. That's expensive.
Just make it
Screw it,
all
he has a
red.
red coat now. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do like that as the reason. Suffice to say, it got a lot got lost in translation as people came across the Atlantic, and first of all, Santa Claus in and of itself is essentially a corruption of his name. It's because I believe it was the Dutch who just pronounced it Sinterklaas. Was their corruption of Saint Nicholas, or at least it sounded that way to us when they came over and started populating New England. And of course, us being Americans, we're like, that's hard to say. We're going to make that easier to say. And so Saint Nicholas became Sinterklaas, became Santa Claus. Now, as far as how he wound up with a sleigh and reindeer and everything, I'm actually not entirely sure. Although I have heard that has something to do with things getting mixed up with old Norse traditions.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of Norse traditions being thrown in there because everybody likes to bring up, something was stolen from Odin or something in the description or the design of what we now see as Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
And we're both going to have to double check because it's been years since I've read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where Father Christmas makes an appearance.
Yes.
I forget.
Yeah.
I think he was wearing a red coat back then too.
Yeah.
But
he was sporting a red coat, at least in the movie. And I think he did in the book as well. I think the transformation from green to red happened a long time ago.
And as your friend has noted in the comments, the suits probably change depending on which culture you're talking to.
Oh, true. Very true.
Yes, bring all your cultures to America. We'll throw them into a blender, hit frappe, and then we'll market them.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what happened to, All Hallows Eve. I mean, it bears zero resemblance to the vigil of one of the more important feast days in the Catholic Church these days, which makes it easy for people to go, it's just a pagan holiday and everything, and the church just co-opted a pagan harvest festival and yada yada yada. It's like, no, it started in Japan and it was originally in the spring, you twits. But to be fair, I didn't know that until I don't remember when I first read it, and it might have been like a decade ago at this point. But that still means I went like 30 years without knowing it.
Yeah, there is a YouTube channel that actually addresses the, Christianity is just X, Y, or Z myth. I believe they're actually run by Lutherans. I'm guessing High Church Lutherans by how it goes
clearly,
out.
yeah.
And it's
we've got a lot in common with that particular branch. We've got a lot in common with the High Church Lutherans.
And it starts with, yes, I am Horus. I am who you're really worshiping, and it winds up deconstructing every BS that, atheist anthropologists, which is probably a bit redundant, trying to say that Christianity is just like X. It's like,
right.
Yeah, you're an anthropologist. You apparently don't know history.
Exactly. These two things seem similar. Therefore, these guys just ripped this one off. And unless there's a secret source Q at the back of it
all. Anyway, we're getting a little bit off topic.
A little bit. But that's okay. That's okay. That's half the fun of doing this sort of thing. And so, yeah, it is sad that so few people remember anything about who St. Nicholas actually was, because he was way more interesting than this dude who lives at the North Pole.
Oh yeah, and when it's punch Arius in the face, gets thrown in jail at Nicaea for at least conduct unbecoming. Like,
What? You mean it's not cool to just randomly punch people?
not in the middle of a council. Well, if I recall the story from my cheat sheets that I looked at 5-10 minutes ago, it was, yes, we're going to take away his, I may be mispronouncing, pallium,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and just, strip him of his vestments, throw him in a jail cell. Jesus and Mary personally come to him and restore both to him. So he is personally promoted by the Lord God and his mother.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you have it right there. Jesus endorses punching heretics in the face. Okay, that doesn't mean just go and punch everybody in the face. Don't do that. But when certain situations call for it, maybe.
Yeah. And you and I were earlier discussing a group called Sabaton.
Oh, yes.
Which, for those of you in the audience who do not know them, they are a heavy metal group from Europe. Don't ask me which part of Europe, because I'm starting to lose track. I'm getting a lot of heavy metal groups in my circles nowadays, and they're all from Middle Europe or Northern Europe, and I need a scorecard. Anyway, Sabaton does heavy metal military engagements, including, they have not yet covered Lepanto.
Oh, but I want them to.
Oh, trust me. I am friends with an author named Tom Kratman, who is a former colonel, U.S. Army.
Okay.
Who has also said, I want them to do Lepanto. But he is so one of us. He has a dramatic YouTube reading of G.K. Chesterton's Lepanto.
Nice.
So
I dig it.
Yeah. And some of their pieces include Winged Hussars, which is the Siege of Vienna, and The Last Stand of the Swiss Guard in 1527. It's very simply called The Last Stand. And let's just say that, you remember the London Bridge attack from a week or two back?
Yes.
Well, let's just say we have a Polish chef with a long lance, that's a narwhal tusk, and it's like, the Winged Hussars were Polish cavalry. I wonder if there's something in the genes.
Maybe.
What else
why else would I possibly react any other way? I mean, there's a lance, there's a bad guy. They should meet.
Yes. Unfortunately, you don't know the song. Otherwise, then the Winged Hussars arrived. Anyway,
I actually went ahead and Googled them. I've got it up right here. When we're done, I'm probably going to listen to it. At least listen to one song, because this sounds like way too much fun. Fields of Verdun. I see. The Last Stand. It's actually right up there. So.
Oh yeah,
it's the first one on the list. So there you go.
Well, so we can either punch heretics in the face, run a terrorist through with
a narwhal tusk, because that's just awesome.
Either way.
No. And actually, as I said, we don't have a ton of time, but Greg mentioned that there's a lot of uncertainty over whether or not Jesus was actually born on December 25th. As Greg points out, who cares?
Right.
In a sense. But there is actually some evidence to suggest that it was.
Well, what I recall, the evidence was that he was born at a time when the nights were longer and the days were colder. So it's like, okay, we're just going to go for the shortest amount of sunlight in the year, right there.
Well, there's that. Apparently, and I would need to, and I might do this. I might do like a short little episode covering this. But there is an astronomical case for it.
Okay.
Since since everybody kind of assumes that the wise men, whether they be 3 or 50, we don't actually know. It's not in there.
Okay.
It's actually tradition as far as it was 3 wise men. They brought 3 gifts, but we don't know how many the wise men there actually were.
Trust me, if there were 20 guys bringing gold, Mary and Joseph wouldn't have been poor very long.
They would have needed an extra camel. But in any case, so the general assumption is that they were astrologers at the time. There's a case based on like Jupiter was in Leo or something at the time, and I would need to go back and actually in research it to cover it adequately. But I've heard the whole thing laid out, and it's like that's actually fairly convincing on its face. It's like, okay, fine. And there is evidence that at least back as far back as either the late 2nd or early 3rd century, there were a number of Christians out there that were starting to that were celebrating Christmas on December 25th. And and this is important, not actually in Rome. It wasn't necessarily originating there. And the reason I point that out is because people like to say that it was that the church was just co-opting pagan feast that was on or near December 25th. Actually, just near, as it turns out. Saturnalia.
Saturnalia has more in common with the office Christmas party than it does with what we celebrate.
Right. And a lot of that, digging into history, it turns out a lot of that feast that people are talking about didn't come about until after Christians started celebrating Christmas on December 25th. Like, it wasn't a big deal until I can never remember if it's Julian or Justinian the Apostate. Was it Julian the Apostate?
I think it was Justinian.
Okay, Justinian the Apostate. He was emperor. I forget exactly what's after. I forget exactly when it was, but it was after Constantine. He actually started promoting a Saturnalia and a bunch of other things and changing it to make it more appealing to people, because he didn't like the way that Christianity was essentially taking over the empire, and he wanted to draw people away from it back to the old pagan religion, which was the old pagan religion, but dressed up and made it look a lot more like Christianity.
It's so nice to know that none of these current techniques are actually new.
Exactly. Nothing new under the sun at all. And one other piece of evidence for possibly December 25th is the old Jewish idea that a prophet would die on the same day that he was either born or conceived. Well, they kind of trace the first Easter to March 25th, which is also when we celebrate the Feast of the Annunciation.
Go 9 months.
Go 9 months. Boom. You've got December 25th. So, adjusting for changes in calendar from then to now and all of that, because obviously they weren't operating on the Gregorian calendar.
Now, 2 things.
Please.
You talking about wise men got me thinking. 2 things. One, I've heard a lot of people actually suggest, gee, maybe we should move all the gift giving to Epiphany.
Right.
Because, oh, look, that's when gift giving was.
I think the Orthodox do something like that.
Greek or Russian?
Fair question. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, second thing. There is a book by David Morrell. If you don't know the guy, he created a character named John Rambo.
Oh, yes. Yes, that guy.
Yeah, he wrote the novel First Blood. And he was kind of confused that there were even talk of sequels back then. Like, did you read this book? One of his more recent ones, and it last 20 years, probably earlier. He did The Spy Who Came for Christmas. And part of it was a spy's view of the Epiphany, where, well, the nearest competitor to the Roman Empire was the Babylonian
Mm.
who are people in the East.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, the best way to do a disinformation campaign is you hit an empire at their weakest, their most out of control and chaotic area, for example, like, I don't know.
Israel.
Yeah. So, and we've got this really unstable psychopath named Herod, who, has slaughtered more kids than his own pig. It's safer to be his pigs than his own children.
He's
Because
kind of like the patron saint of Planned Parenthood. Yeah.
And so, well, a very easy spy operation would be, you send in some guys, talk about this prophesied king, talk to Herod, who's paranoid anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and have him go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Now, somebody says in the book, so wait, you mean there wasn't a Jesus? Oh, no. In fact, the exact opposite. Because the first, their second step in part of the disinformation campaign would have been, first, you stop to Herod. Then you go back to Herod saying, oh, we've seen this wonderful newborn king. He's going off to so-and-so, some other location, and keep Herod chasing a ghost that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
They figured, in the book, it is suggested that, yes, the wise men found the Messiah
Mm-hmm.
and went, oh, crap, we can't go back to Herod. He'll kill this kid. Quick, retreat.
That's actually a good point. Yes, if it was fake, like I said, they would have just kept him going.
Yes, you can chase it. You can be chasing a phantom forever. It's like, oh God, there's a real kid here. It was a real Messiah.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah, I thought you'd be amused.
I am. That's pretty cool. Now I need to see if I can find that book.
Well, Dave Morrell, The Spy Who Came for Christmas.
The Spy Who Came for Christmas. How can you not remember that title? It's like Ian Fleming. No. Although I would be. No, I don't want to know his rendition of how that would look because. I'm just thinking of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and just my brain is melting. Yeah. For those who don't know, the guy who came up with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is the guy who came up with James Bond. Yeah. That's why the lady's name is truly scrumptious. If that ever seemed odd to you, now you know why. Yeah.
Poor Ian. I wonder if something during the war broke him.
Don't know. I don't know, but especially if he had anything at all to do. Yeah. If he had, something broke him because I can't think of any. Yeah. That movie is awful.
It really is. Although, a fun fact about Ian Fleming's spy career during World War II. Aside from his assassination of a Japanese spy across Rockefeller Center with a sniper rifle.
I did not know that.
One of the people, it's how he made his bones within MI6. MI6? Anyway, one of his partners he worked with during the war was a guy named Pershwi. Are you a Doctor Who fan by any chance?
That name is seeming familiar to me.
Well, John Pertwee was the third Doctor.
Oh, that's why I know that name.
Which, given his previous career as a spook, kind of explains why he was the oldest Doctor at the time, and he's doing all this martial arts stuff. And
I never watched any of the original Doctor Who, but yeah, now I feel like I need to.
Well, you can also follow. His son is Sean Pertwee, and there are certain angles where it looks like he's his father's ghost. Sean Pertwee, you might have seen, if you watched Gotham, he was Alfred. If you watched Cadfael from 30 years ago,
Oh,
first season,
that's him. He's the son of the third
son of a
doctor.
doctor, yeah.
No kidding. Okay, because I actually really liked him as Alfred.
Okay.
I thought he would, yeah. Which again, another episode to to talk about Gotham, because I love short version. I think it got up to a bit of a rough start, but if you stuck with it, it actually went pretty good.
Good. You'll have to tell me, because I watched the first 3 episodes and it's like, wow, this is like a depraved episode of Criminal Minds all the time. No, thank you. I fast forward through.
There's a spot later on that it gets it goes worse in that direction, and that was I actually almost just like checked out of the series for a while, but a friend of mine encouraged me to go back into it. I was glad I did. But anyway, we are far afield.
Yes, we are,
and we are past an hour. So, ladies and gentlemen, Greg, again, thanks for coming into the chat and the comments and everything to help keep us going if ever we felt a lack of something to talk about, which, as you see, doesn't really happen. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We hope we were able to help you learn a little something today about both the Immaculate Conception, St. Nicholas, and of course, actually, some reasons why people think that Christmas actually was on December 25th. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'll ask God later.
much later.
And then he'll be like, it's like, does that matter? But we hope you were able to learn a little something and, hopefully clear up a misconception or two. And if you have further questions, further commentary, you can find me at Gingerman Editor over on the Twitter, or at Fighting Void if you want to just contact the show. DMs are open for both. And you can also go to fightthevoid@gmail.com, and you can find Declan at Declan Finn on the Twitters.
Declan Finn, yes.
And check out his books, because I cannot recommend them highly enough.
Thank you.
So again, it's Christmas. Go buy books.
Amen. Give the gift of books. Trust me.
Yes, exactly. Give the gift of Catholic vampires and bilocating cops. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, keep fighting the good fight.